Hey, welcome back. This is another one of our KidMin training to go. And tonight we have a great missions panel. And we've been visiting for a couple minutes prior to this. Tonight, the focus of what we want to present and is the heartbeat of missions and the importance of creating a heart of compassion for and in boys and girls. So I wanted to share with you our panel tonight. We have co-hosting with us is Jenn Hewitt. Jenn is a children's pastor at Christian Life Fellowship in Port Edwards. Jenn, we just finished Kids Blast at the Kalahari, and Jenn was our MC there. We had about 750 boys and girls and leaders at Kids Blast. It was a great opportunity there. Jenn is a veteran of missions and missions trips, and so we're excited about her leading us and helping co-host this. We also have with us Stephen Jetland. Steve is the lead pastor at Family Worship Center in Park Falls, Wisconsin. And we brought him on because he did something really quite unique for missions this year. And God just inspired him. And I'll just say it right now, Stephen, Park Falls, your church is on fire for missions. And we'll explain what that means a little bit more in just a little bit.
Starting with puns already. All right.
Starting the puns already, yes. And so there is something to do with fire. And no, they did not do fire eating for missions, but it was similar. We also have with us Paul Welch. Paul Welch is a children's and discipleship pastor in Christ Place Church in Lincoln, Nebraska. Paul is also a former children's pastor from Wisconsin, and we're glad to have him with us. Paul, were you born and raised in Wisconsin?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then I know that you were in North Central. Is it right? Did you go to North Central?
Evangel.
Oh, Evangel. I should have known that. That's where my
I was
daughter
like,
goes to
"Ooh."
school. I should have known that. I did know that. And then I thought, why am I saying no? But you were an education major at Evangel.
Yeah. Yep.
And,
started a degree in elementary, middle school education and taught for 7 years, and then ended up in kids ministry. So
awesome. So we're glad to have Paul with us tonight. And then we also have a couple of missionaries with us, Trent and Tina Morrow. They're missionaries to Uruguay. And where are you guys at right now?
We are in Montevideo, Uruguay.
So they're in Uruguay right now. Now, what's the time zone
He's
difference for
saying
you?
the city.
I'm not going to say the city.
We're 3 hours ahead, so it's 10 o'clock here at night.
10 o'clock at night. So we've kept you up past your bedtime.
Yeah, just missionaries. We go to bed early. No.
Well, we're glad to have you. How long have you guys been in Uruguay?
We've been here for 22 years.
22 years.
22 years.
We were real young when we left. We were like 12. So.
You were 12 when you... No, I don't believe you on that at all.
And we were children's pastors before we became missionaries.
You were awesome. So,
Great state of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
Land of the Sooners.
The Sooners, awesome. And Trent, are you from Oklahoma as well?
Yeah, we grew up in the same church. Watch out.
Oh man! So you dated the girl from kids' church, huh?
Youth, but not
Youth.
church. No.
Right,
Let's
not
avoid
kids'
that.
The one from kids.
Lions.
What was that?
We're Sagu Lions. We both went to Southwestern.
Southwestern, awesome.
Southwestern.
Stephen, I can ask you where you went.
At North Central University.
North Central. All right. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have all of you with us. Let me just tell you a little bit about how the session is going to go tonight. We're going to have 4 distinct sessions. The first part is we're going to talk about the importance of missions and why missions is important, developing that heart of compassion in boys and girls. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to go into 3 other sections in things that we want to cultivate in boys and girls. One is praying, and how do we develop a heart of prayer in boys and girls for our missionaries, the importance of prayer, giving, creative ways to give to missions and missionaries, and why giving is important for missions, and then there are boys and girls that are sitting in our kids' churches who are God's calling them to go. And what can we do to nurture them, and who's important in that nurturing process? So that's kind of the sections that we're going to talk about in tonight's session. And Jen, we're going to let you lead us in this first session. We're going to talk about why do we do missions? So I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so a lot of times people will look at kids and, they discount them and they're like, oh, that's great. That's cute that they have their little buddy barrels, but really, like, what can they do? And so when we put missions in front of kids and we explain the heart of the why behind it, and we cast vision and we give them resources, kids do amazing things and they don't have to wait until they're older. It's kind of like with any spiritual discipline. It's like, why would you wait until they're older to put that challenge in front of them or that spiritual discipline in front of them? You're not going to teach them how to read a Bible when they're 17 and be like, oh, you have to wait to do that. It's the same with missions. When we cultivate that heart of missions within them, it's cultivating a heart of compassion. A lot of people will they'll be afraid to put it in front of the kids because they don't think they can do much. But when you put that in front of them, God just does amazing things through them. But the biggest thing for me is it generates gratitude. If you're grateful for the things that you have, you're going to be more willing to give. And when these kids grab a hold of a project or grab hold of a vision of helping someone else other than them, it's a win. We live in a society, in a culture right now where it's very me centered. It's, how are my feelings? This is what I'm experiencing. This is my perspective. And when we teach kids that it's not about them, it's about something even bigger, then it's really cool. It also, for me, it really generates a shift of perspective. So a lot of kids, when they grow up in church or they're attending church weekly, they take it for granted. They take for granted that they have the resources, that we can sing 100 songs. We can, play Legos in kids' church. We can have kids' church. We can have a kids' pastor. And that's not a luxury that kids all over the world have. And so when they're able, again, to see beyond what they have and want to give back, then it helps them to just cultivate that heart. So it's pretty cool.
Anybody else want to weigh in on why missions is important? Teaching boys and girls about missions is important in cultivating that heart of compassion. Paul, why don't we ask you if you could maybe speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, what Jen said was great. There are a lot of reasons, but I think one of the reasons that come to my mind is our time is short. So you want to think of, like, developmentally, our kids have a window early on to be able to absorb and create their normal, right? So that it means not only following Jesus, but also what it looks like to follow Jesus, or how we follow Jesus. And so, man, I would add to that the earlier we can start, the better. So we want to start in kids' church, but man, wouldn't it be cool if they were hearing about it in our preschool, or they were praying for missionaries in their preschool, and they may not fully understand it, but man, the younger we can do it, the more normal it becomes to them, and I think that's a big win. The other thing too, I would say, is the idea of missions is it is others focused. I think, I know there's research out there that one of the main reasons that people or kids stick with their faith into adulthood is that they're serving or being others focused before age 12. There's something that happens in us when they show up to church, and it's not just, what does God have for me? They're like, well, God's going to have something for me because he does every week. But it's like, God, how do you want to use me? And a lot of times missions is that avenue to do that. And so those are a couple of things I would add to what Jen said.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in on that at all?
Yeah, I can speak to something on that.
Yes, Stephen.
I know when it comes to children, they soak up everything around them. I have 2 sons of my own, and it does not take long for them to understand that money is something that they want to get a hold on. Mm-hmm. Like I found 2 nights ago, my wife went to go check on my son Harrison. He's 3 years old, She's like, "How come there's a $10 bill underneath his pillow?" And that was the $10 bill that was supposed to be in my wallet that he found earlier that day. So it's like they figure it out quick, right? They figure it out quick. And so as a church, and this isn't just BGMC is great for kids, but it's great for an all-inclusiveness of adults to jump on side, because if the kids can see adults giving to something, they're going to want to do it too. And so in our church, it's not just the buddy barrel. Is after the buddy barrels are emptied, we actually send the kids back out into the crowd, and adults raise up money and hand it to the kids. And the kids receive the money, run it back up to the buddy barrel, and release it again. And I think it just cultivates this culture of giving, and I love it. I love seeing it. It's probably one of my favorite aspects of church, and I look forward to it every month. So
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that we really focus on with our kids is that it's not ours to begin with. God has blessed them with it, and so giving back a portion and teaching them at that young age is something that's super valuable. And the thing I love about teaching them at a young age, from nursery, from toddler, from preschool to kids church, is then as they're bridging them into youth, and then again bridging them into adulthood, you're not having to retrain them on these methods. Like it's ingrained in them that that's what you do, and they know why they're doing it. It's not just because mom and dad tell me to. It's really like they're choosing, and it's really cool when you see kids who voluntarily are super excited to bring their money in for missionaries. And the more you keep the stories in front of them, the missionaries, the more they'll get a hold of it, and it puts people and projects to what they're actually giving to, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I would echo a lot of what you just said. What happens when we give to missions, and especially like what Paul said, start as early as we possibly can. And if 2-year-olds, it's everything's mine, and we have to train a child in the way they should go, and the way it's not always in a way that is it goes against their nature, and missions is against our nature. It's giving above and beyond, giving to people that need Jesus. I have kind of a theology of missions, and first of all, missions is the heartbeat of God. The Bible tells us that God so loved the world that he sent his son. Mm-hmm. He sent his son. The first missions experience in that regard is that God sent his son Jesus to die for us. And we send missionaries around the world. So that is the heartbeat of God, to reach the lost, that they would know Christ. It's the essence of the Great Commission, to go into the whole world and to reach them for Christ, to make disciples of all nations. That is the essence of why missions. And I don't care whether you're the lead pastor, the children's worker, or whether you work in the nursery, wherever you work, you can help develop that heart of compassion for the lost in boys and girls. And we need to let them know that they can partner with God, what he's doing around the world, by supporting missionaries and missions. And we're going to talk about ways that we can support missionaries here in just a minute. And another thing is, we've all talked about it's important to train kids early. And the last one I wanted to mention, this is really our heritage, is all of us being in the Assemblies of God. In 1914, the year of our founding, one of the things we committed ourselves to doing was being the greatest evangelism force that the world has ever seen. And we want to cultivate that in boys and girls, is that we want to encourage them that God wants to use them as a great evangelistic force around the world. And so that's kind of my theology of why we do that. I don't know if Trent and Tina, if you wanted to add any more to that.
Well, Mark, I noticed on your shelf back there, you have one of the original little wooden buddy barrels.
I do.
When I was an infant in the church that we both grew up in, our senior pastor would give our parents that little wooden barrel and expected our parents every month to have that filled with quarters. So I admire every senior pastor that gets behind BGMC, because it is like, I was just an infant and couldn't possibly understand about missions or BGMC. but our senior pastor planted that seed and importance into my parents that missions was important and that it was their responsibility at home, that that as a family that we give to missions. So I do admire every senior pastor that is a part of BGMC and doesn't just put that burden upon just the children's pastors, but that as a church in whole, the BGMC, or that just as even from the nursery, that being important about missions. So
Yeah. One of the things that to go along with that is that I firmly believe is that what we do in developing that heart of for the lost is in boys and girls is BGMC. The thrust of BGMC, even though we collect money and give it to missionaries, the thrust of it is really um, loving the world for Jesus. And how do we do that? We send missionaries. And how do we do that? We support missionaries. And we're going to talk about this next part of this is so we pray for them. And BGMC, the reality of it is it's a great curriculum. It's a great way to train our kids in how to love the world by the way that God loved them. So we're going to talk a little bit about prayer. And so I would like to say we're going to have three sections. We're going to talk about prayer, the first one,